Bonjour à tous. Thank you for joining us. Merci d'être parmi nous ce soir. My name is Kina Leclerc and I will be your moderator. Je m'appelle Kina Leclerc et je serai votre modératrice pour ce point de presse. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few items. As usual, please place your phone on mute until I invite you to speak or to ask your question. And please do not place the call on hold. Available for questions from the media, we have disponible pour répondre aux questions des médias, nous accueillons in council chambers, Mayor le Maire Jim Watson, Steve Kanellakos, City Manager, Directeur Municipal, la Docteure Vera Etches, Chief Medical Officer of Health, Médecin-Chef en Santé Publique, and Anthony DiMonte, General Manager of Emergency and Protective Services, Directeur Général des Services de Protection et d'Urgence. Phoning in today, we have Councillor Keith Aglai, Chair, Ottawa Board of Health, Conseiller municipal et Président du Conseil de santé d'Ottawa, Donna Gray, General Manager, Community and Social Services Department, Directrice Générale des Services sociaux et communautaires, Dan Chénier, General Manager, Recreation, Cultural and Facility Services, Directeur Général des Loisirs, de la Culture et des Installations, David White, City Solicitor, Avocat Général, Roger Chapman, Director, Bylaw and Regulatory Services, Directeur Service des règlements municipaux, Valerie Bietlo, Manager, Public Policy Development Branch, Gestionnaire, Direction de l'élaboration de politiques publiques. Michel Rochette, Manager, Municipal Elections and French Language Services. Gestionnaire, Élections municipales et services en français, and Milan Stefanovic, Program Manager, Elections, Gestionnaire de programme, élections. I will now invite each agency alphabetically to ask their question. You may ask one question with one follow-up. Par ordre alphabétique, j'invite maintenant chaque organisme à poser une question et une question de suivi. So we will now start with Chris Curries at 1310 News.
Good evening, everyone. There was a very long chat this afternoon on the LRT. I don't know how much of it you can talk about, but were discussions positive, negative, and any discussions on tearing up that contract from Rideau Transit Group?
Yeah, thank you for the question. As you know, in-camera items have to remain in camera because they're dealing with a solicitor-client privilege, and so it was a very thorough overview of various legal issues. Our number one preoccupation continues to be to push RTG and RTM to provide the service that we've paid for. That's why we're holding back a significant amount of money from the consortium. We're seeing obviously some progress on some of the issues that they've brought forward, but anything of a legal nature, we don't want to disadvantage our case against RTG, so that's really all I can say on that matter. Thank you.
No problem. And just a follow-up for Dr. Etches. You mentioned earlier today the best case scenario for Ottawa's fight against COVID-19 would see the expansion of our social circles. Is there any sort of timeline on that and what we could be seeing, 15, 20, 25 people?
No, I don't have any details about when that would happen. This is under the provincial order that we have the current 10, limit in terms of who we can be in close contact with. But that is something the Minister of Health has indicated she's interested in doing. If the trends continue to be positive, I think that's what we're waiting to see.
Thank you. Moving on, we will go to Kate Porter at CBC Ottawa. Kate, are you on the call?
Yes, I am. I didn't unmute myself. Thanks. So many things we could ask you about today, but my questions relate to LRT. I was wondering if you could, I understand not talking about contract issues, but perhaps, I'm not sure if this is the mayor or Mr. Kanellakos, could you give us a bit of a temperature of things? I mean, we had last seen, battling executives, et cetera, and now there's been a changing of the guard. Have you been seeing a change in that relationship or an improvement of any kind?
I can say that, it's still early days. They've got 2 new executives that they brought in at RTG and RTM. Right now, it's looking positive. They're moving quickly to action a number of things that we've been talking about with them for a long time. They seem very cooperative. They seem to be focusing on the things that we want. But as we've told Council before, and I'll say it here again, the results talk. We're expecting them to deliver those 2 trains by the end of August. We're expecting them to move forward on the rectification plan and make significant progress on the things that are causing the unreliability of the system. And for me to make a judgment on the changes, despite the relationship will get a lot better if they deliver the results. That's kind of where I'm at. And being nice and having a great relationship and the system not running right is not worth any of my time or anybody else's here at City Hall.
My follow-up relates to LRT still. We'd also heard the promise that we'd have 15 trains by August 4th, and that's just a couple of weeks from now. Do you think that's at all a likelihood?
Well, that's their promise, and as I said, results talk. Speculation means nothing. So if they deliver the trains, I'll be able to tell you that we're happy. If they don't, well, then we're into another chapter of our discussions with them.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now go to Megan Shaw at CTV Ottawa. Megan, are you on the call? Is anyone from CTV Ottawa on the call? Okay, we will move on to Craig Lord at Global News. Is anyone from Global News on the call? Okay, we will go to Julien Paquette at Le Droit.
Your Worship, I'd like to know about the measures that the Council adopted today in order to provide better protection for employees in councillors' offices in Ottawa. I think I would say we passed 2 motions regarding employees and interviews. I certainly support both those recommendations, as well as the report from the clerk's office. These measures are necessary. We saw what happened with Mr. Chiarelli. We saw that we needed to offer more protection for people who want to work here at City Hall. We need to have a safe workspace and work environment for them, and that's why the City Council passed those 2 resolutions, that is to provide better protection for people seeking jobs here in Ottawa. And as I said, I think the vote was almost unanimous. There were 2 points that some council members did not support, but the majority of colleagues supported the new regulations and processes that will be in place to jobs and to hiring here at the Mayor's office. In your opinion, had those measures been in place earlier, would they have prevented the kind of situation we've seen with Mr. Chiarelli? Yes, absolutely. There's a proposal to have a member of Human Resources present at an interview. At present, someone from the team must sit with the councillor and the person being interviewed. We need someone from Human Resources to sit in on the interview, and I think that we are not going to see this kind of situation again. Thank you. Thank you, Julien.
very much. Mayor Watson, I'm sort of struck by the difference of how you've treated Councillor Shirelli vis-a-vis Councillor George DeRouge, who was, as you know, found guilty by your own integrity commissioner for bullying a woman, and you had absolutely no comment on that digression. I'm wondering if you can explain. I appreciate that what Councillor Shirelli is alleged to have done is much, much different, but it would seem to fit into my theory about the Watson Club, so I'm hoping you can help me understand that.
I think, Sue, you hit the nail on the head. It's a world of difference between the actions of Councillor Shirelli versus what Councillor DeRouge, who had obviously an argument with a member of his community during the midst of an election campaign. So a world of difference. Council did, and I supported the motion that was brought forward by the Integrity Commissioner. It was passed unanimously, and Councillor DeRouge did apologize. We've had no apology and no explanation from Councillor Shirelli. So this notion that, you know, I and the entire council, by the way, which voted unanimously to dock him 270 days worth of pay, you know, has never come forward, never explained his actions, skirted around interview requests by the commissioner, and at the end of the day has never apologized to these brave women that came forward. So it's a completely different stratosphere that Councillor Shirelli was involved with versus Councillor DeRouge. Thank you.
And so as a follow-up, Dr. Etches, you sort of struck fear in, I believe, everyone's hearts when you were talking and you referred to 1 or 2 years. Is that how long you think we're going to be dealing with COVID virus?
Well, what I know is that the virus isn't going to just disappear until we have immunity, and hopefully that will be through a vaccine, you know, before that time. It is hard to predict if it will be 9 months or 12 months or 24, but my point is we can't wait for that. We can't stay in our homes and wait this out. We have to learn how to live with the virus. We need people to get back to work, back to school, and so what it requires is a different way of going about some of these things that we need to do them now in a way that's COVID-wise. Right, the wearing a mask when you're indoors and you can't distance, the isolating yourself when you're sick, stay home if you're sick, the staying 2 meters apart is really important, and then of course always exercising hand hygiene. So that is my message, that we can't wait. We know it's going to be here a while. We need to learn to live with the virus and balance the different risks to our health. This is about being able to plan into the future. So we need to think forward and create plans that will work over that time period.
But you're talking about up to 2 years.
Yeah, well, I think we have to take it a bit at a time. So obviously, that's a possibility. We plan for the worst case scenarios and we hope for the best. This next stage we're in is really important. So we're asking people to go back to work and do things in the way that's safer.
Thank you very much. We will now go to John Willing at Ottawa Citizen.
Hi, Mayor. I'm wondering, you know, you're going to have a councillor who's not going to be paid for at least 9 months. And are you worried at all about the representation residents and College Ward are going to get in that time? I don't want to speak, you know, in any way of Councillor Shirley, but someone who's not getting paid might not work as hard over that period of time. And what responsibility as mayor do you think you have to make sure residents of College Ward are getting that proper representation?
Well, that's a very good point. It hasn't been brought up before. My hope is that Councillor Shirelli continues to do the work that he has been paid for and that he will be paid for in the future after the 270 days is over. Ultimately, we can't force him to work harder or not be lazy on a particular file. And, you know, I will certainly, as I have over the course of the last several months, met with a number of his community groups who who want some direction and seek some advice. Councillor Moffat, even though that formal relationship between Councillor Moffat and Councillor Chiarelli's office has ceased, Councillor Moffat did develop a good rapport with a number of groups that he's continuing to help with. Councillor Chiarelli also has staff that are paid for by the City of Ottawa taxpayers, and those individuals should be conducting the day-to-day constituency work. You know, a good, I'd say 80% of the work that comes into a councillor's office or into my office is often sorted and handled by staff. A lot of the routine matters, you know, of traffic signal down or problems with garbage pickup or, you know, park maintenance and so on. So a lot of those can be done, in fact, by members of his staff, and my hope is that they would do that. I know the clerk's office does keep close tabs on that particular office to make sure if they need any help or if they feel at all threatened in their work environment, that they have a place to go and seek rectification. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. A follow-up on a different matter. I know you're no lover of doing policy on the fly, yet that's what we saw tonight. I think with the Byward Market patio hours, why didn't you just advocate to hold off on that decision until proper consultation could be done, come back to committee and council with a well-informed decision?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, the motion that was brought forward by Councillor Fleury was a bit of a hot mess, and we saw clearly early on that this thing was unraveling. And I don't think from our staff's perspective, John, it was tenable to have this hodgepodge of different closing hours for patios, one beside one another. So I think what Councillor Tierney tried to do was to bring some semblance of compromise, and some of the patios will see an extra hour of permitted service, and others will see 1 or 2 hours less of service. I don't know, to be perfectly honest, why we had this hodgepodge in the first place. It should be consistent across the city and certainly across the street, so that you have an understanding, and bylaw officers don't have to be looking up addresses. They just know that the closing hour is 12 or 1 o'clock. So, you know, I tried to express my frustration. I don't like dealing with these things on the fly. We heard contradictory information as to who supported it, who didn't, what level of consultation there was the night before. That's not the way to develop good public policy. It gets us in trouble. But we did have a time crunch, and with fewer meetings in the summer, it was necessary for us to at least give some semblance of direction to our bylaw officials so that they had an ability to actually enforce the bylaw, and also to the proprietors of those bars and restaurants that they understood where they stood with respect to the rules. And we do have that provision in the motion that was approved by council that allows the general manager the ability to shut down a patio if things get out of control. I know, Mr. DeMonte, your folks, I think, had to issue 16 different bylaw fines. We don't want that to happen. We know from a public health point of view that we have to continuously watch these places that they do not become overcrowded and spread COVID-19. And as I said, you're right. I don't like these situations that come up on the fly, and I've expressed that to Councillor Fleury that it just doesn't. It's not good public policy for sure. But I think in this circumstance, given the decision by the province to get into phase 3 starting on Friday, we needed to deal with the patio issue before phase 3 opens up on Friday of this week. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Tina.
Thank you very much. La dernière mais pas la moindre.
Last but not least, Dominique, Radio-Canada.
Dominique, est-ce que tu es...
Dominique, are you on the line? Yes. Sorry, I was still on mute. My question is to Mr. Watson. As you just explained to my colleague, why vote for Mr. Tierney's motion to set patio closures at 1 a.m. when, as they say in French, you're doing this on the fly, and deciding things like that on the fly isn't necessarily a good thing. So why did you decide that? Well, we had a motion just before the meeting of the City Council began. I believe that we need to provide more clarification for our employees, those who are responsible for our municipal bylaws. And as we say in English, we also have to provide a level playing field for restaurants, because in Byward Market, we had a situation where a patio had to close at midnight, another one would be required to close at 11, another one at 1 a.m. It's really unfair. It's unfair to people who are operating these patios and restaurants. So the situation's not ideal, but it's good for us to have provided directions that would be more equitable and fair to the establishments there. Thank you. My second question is to you, Mr. Watson, or to Mr. DeMonte. I don't know who is best placed to answer it. But municipal services can remove a right-of-way permit or patio permit if somebody is not complying with public health rules. How is that going to work? 3 strikes, you're out, or what exactly? I'll let Mr. DeMonte answer. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What the council has given us for the summer, while it's away, it's the authority to act if, for example, Dr. Etches sees a public health problem, or if I see a public safety problem. We have delegated authority to revoke a patio permit. Our goal, of course, is always to talk to the owner and to find solutions whenever possible. We don't necessarily keep a book where we count the strikes, but we can deal with problems and help people adapt. However, during the summer, that delegation of authority gives us the right to revoke the permit of a patio operator who is not in compliance with public health rules or public safety rules. This gives us an additional instrument, and that's what the council provided today. Thank you. Thank you.
Tous, this is all the time that...
Thank you, everyone.
C'est tout le temps qu'on dispose aujourd'hui. Bonne soirée.
Have an excellent evening.
I've never seen the water this low. I mean,
you might see the top from that way, though.
Imagine the dam is probably up to here or higher, right into the bank there. Yeah. Oh, I see him, yeah. Got a big egg sac underneath him.
OK. Organisé par Lorena Gianetti, qui, elle, a des racines et canadiennes et italiennes. OK. Maintenant, c'est